Good evening everyone. Myself Sirisha Reddy Arkareddy, a master's student from Department of Information Quality at University of Arkansas Little Rock. Today in this presentation you will see the details about industry-wide information infrastructures through a life cycle approach. Industry-wide information infrastructures have gained increased attention in the healthcare sector to taming of exploding healthcare costs and dramatically improve service quality by keeping away the most common medication errors. There are two frameworks to combining these. In this paper, the authors propose a combined two frameworks such as company level and industry level to shed light on the process of industry-wide information infrastructures emergence. For the first time, the authors demonstrate industry-wide information infrastructures emergence is complicatedly linked to the industry life cycle for the case of fragmented industries such as healthcare industry, and the authors explore the relationship between the industry level and company level life cycles in the process of IIS emergence, and they develop a novel proposition between industry level and company level life cycles. And what the finding means, their findings suggest that current policy have not effectively taken industry level conditions into consideration to promote the development of industry-wide information infrastructures emergence. So they choose China as a research site because of China's rapid speed of economic development. Studying information infrastructures emergence in healthcare. What is information infrastructure? Information infrastructures are shared means jointly used by several user groups evolving in a state of continuous change, and open, not limited to a predefined user group, and finally heterogeneous, used by different kinds of user groups. Information infrastructures have recently attracted broader academic attention in the information systems literature. Information infrastructures concerns those that develop at the level of whole industries. However, results have been largely disappointing. Thus, a better understanding of how IIS emerge and evolve would seem to be practically helpful as well. And the authors mainly focus on emergence rather than evolution because in many countries the healthcare industry from a practical perspective has yet to form a basic information infrastructure in contrast to other industries such as automotive and IT industry, in which IIIS have emerged several decades. They argue that life cycle based approach is appropriate to their purpose. Life cycle approach as a basis for their theoretical framework, but they are interested in the phenomena of IIIS emergence in fragmented industries such as healthcare industries. Therefore, they propose that a life cycle based approach is applicable to service industries and particularly promising for studying the emergence of information infrastructures in the healthcare sector. Multi-level life cycle based theoretical framework. The information infrastructure emergence needs to be analyzed on these two levels, the firm level and the industry level. Because of the recursive nature of information infrastructures, the right conditions must prevail on both these levels to facilitate IIS emergence. On the firm level, companies must have mastered network era technologies, whereas on the industry level, the stable stage of the industry life cycle must have been reached. Then they draw on the theoretical constructs proposed by the stages hypothesis and the industry life cycle concept to measure the progression of firms and industries in their respective life cycles. These constructs are summarized in the table. Constructs used for data coding. In firm level, structure of the application portfolio, nature of the IT resource, type of management control, degree of user awareness are the indicators. And coming to the industry level, product or service characteristics, innovation focus, number of firms, horizontal relationships, vertical relationships are the indicators. The emergence of an information infrastructure in the Chinese pharmaceutical distribution industry. Case narration by periods. And coming to the historical legacy, it consists of a tiered system for providing healthcare services. Specifically, both hospitals and distributors of medical products, often called medical suppliers, are structured into a three-tier related to the geographic organization of the country. Although the early experiment ultimately failed, the central government later adopted the idea and mandated that provinces operated so-called e-bidding platforms to run reverse auctions for the procurement of drugs. And coming to the first period is between 2004 to 2006, and that the old institutional structure still dominates the industry. Yes, the structure of the industry at the beginning of their period of observation is still very much characterized by the remnants of the old systems of pharmaceutical distribution. The government also decide that they can't rely on the industry associations for better information that are seen as weak. And coming to the second period, from 2007 to 2009, a new business model is shaping up. The second period is a period of transition in terms of the industry level and company level life cycle stages. And coming to the third period, from 2010 to 2012, the new logistics based and IT based business model is becoming clearly visible. Government efforts to consolidate the industry are having mixed results. All industry level indicators are suggestive of a progression of the industry towards a mature stage, whereas the predicted development on the company level is only evident for hospitals. These are the 5 findings for the research question on how do IIS emerge. First one is the process of information infrastructure emergence was driven by top-down as well as bottom-up forces. Means these efforts were motivated by both concerns over the efficiency of supply chain operations and a desire to build more cooperative relationships with hospitals. And second one is top-down and bottom-up forces resulted in two types of systems: third-party e-commerce platforms and privately built business-to-business platforms. These two were used in parallel to one another. Finally, B2B platforms allow distributors to maintain and strengthen existing personal relationships, whereas the third-party e-commerce platforms would have enforced relationship between distributors and hospitals. And third one is the activities of companies to build B2B platforms. The bottom-up forces were contingent on the industry processing in its life cycle. There's again the structured change on the industry level facilitated the cooperative development of business-to-business platforms, while building such platforms also a culture of cooperation among competitors. And fourth one is the activities of government to impose inter-organizational information systems on the industry. The top-down forces began well before the industry had reached a mature stage and before companies had entered the network era. Because of this result, both distributors and hospitals did not perceive the mandated use of third-party e-commerce platforms to be beneficial to them and attempted to minimize their use. And fifth one is intra-organizational system integration seemed to lag behind external systems integration. And coming to discussion about those findings are like IAS to emerge, two conditions must exist. Companies must have mastered network era technologies and industry must have reached the stable, matured stage of their life cycle. In contrast, their case study suggests that companies have not yet mastered network era technologies as described by finding 5, and the industry had not first entered the matured stable stage before companies undertook to build an industry-wide information infrastructures. Stable regulatory environment is a necessary precondition for information infrastructure emergence. Coming to conclusion, they conclude that although the picture of industry-wide information infrastructure's emergence suggested by their original hypothesis was too simple, industry-wide information infrastructure's emergence is complicatedly linked to industry development as suggested by their theoretical approach. Adopting an industry-level perspective suggests a plausible mechanism, and specifically, industry consolidation increases environmental turbulence as seen from a organizational perspective, which may hamper or even upset inter-organizational information systems integration efforts. At the same time, industry consolidation proceeds hand in hand with the emergence of industry-wide information infrastructures. Consequently, the center of information systems integration may move to the organizational periphery. And coming to practical, observed in the healthcare sector in both emerging economies and developed countries should pay more attention to develop dynamics on the industry level. Healthcare sector found that expected savings were not achieved largely because systems were not interoperable and processes were not aligned across the healthcare organizations. Such measures are unlikely to succeed unless industry dynamics are also addressed. So further empirical scrutiny to test their findings is warranted, as there would be quite far-reaching implications for government policies aimed at developing IIS. Thank you.